Welcome, David Manning.
Hey, it's really lovely to see you. It's been too long, Candace.
It's been way too long. Do you even remember the last time we talked? Because I can't place it.
I don't at all. But we chit chat back and forth on Messenger from time to time, don't we? So,
A little
and I
bit.
see. I mean, I follow because you're so prolific on Facebook, and I love reading your dream journal, your ongoing dream journal. That always fascinates me, and often it really touches something quite deep inside. So, thank you for that.
Well, thank you for saying that. Wow, I have to tell you that I stopped in the middle. I still have the next chapter of that one, and I haven't been able to plug it in because of life out there, of what it's allowed me to do and where I kind of stopped. But it's kind of like I like to think of it, it's like reading a chapter book, and I've just
Mm.
set the book down. And even though I have about 5 pages ahead of everyone else, including you, and thank you so much for saying that. I have no idea where it's going either, really, because I've been put on pause there to get to some other things, including today's topic. I want to talk to you about. I mean, the whole reason I want to get together with you today is to talk about, of course, the current energies, but I'm going to be titling this show "The Hospital Angels" because of a lot of different things. And so I want to start there, if it's okay.
Yeah, totally. And I'm really interested because I know you said you've just been talking to somebody very much about this. So, and it's a lovely big subject, I think, um, the hospital angels, and I can't wait to hear what you've picked up from other people as well. That'll be great.
Yeah. So what's fascinating about all of this is I literally got up at 4 a.m. this morning to do a session with somebody in Australia who works at a hospital. And a good portion of the session was about the hospital angels.
Oh,
And what I find completely fascinating about that even is this. David and I we were going to speak about a week ago, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
And that got postponed, and that got postponed a little bit, if it's not too much information, because you just didn't feel well, whatever day that was.
I
There was,
wasn't feeling great that day, and
yeah,
I really don't want to talk about this because I was just feeling,
right.
uh, yeah, I just wasn't in a great space.
Right. And that's
So,
fine. That's fine. And a few things have happened since then. So, first off, what that did then, of course, was align the fact that I just got out of a 4.5 hour session about this subject. And now I'm talking to you. I literally had 20 minutes between finishing with her and starting this recording with you, which I find to be, and I even like was texting you thinking, this might go on. Can we slip this ahead a little bit? And then I ended up saying, no, it's perfect timing. So, but something else happened to set this up. A few things have happened to set this up to make this conversation even more profound and connected than it would have been if we would have kept our original date. And so one was, I listened to your latest teleconference, and I definitely want to talk about that a little bit. But the second one, and I can't help but think that this associates with it. I have no idea your day of not just feeling well. I have no clues. That's simply how you just said it. But I'm going to tell you about my Saturday, which is just a couple days ago. It was horrible. I mean, it was horrible. And I haven't even really talked about it out loud, barely even out loud to myself, but I think it's appropriate and kind of connects with what's going on here. The Saturday started out with my dad getting up, me giving my dad his supplements, and he doesn't take very many medications, but he does take a couple, and we do them in the morning. And he choked on the pills. He kind of really gagged and choked on the pills. And I think what he's always done is he takes them all at once. And I can't even do that myself. I take a few at a time, but he's always been, but he's 91, right? And he kind of has, he's got some lung issues, and he coughs some phlegm up a lot. And I think the whole situation was so unpleasant that morning. It just completely unpleasant that morning, but we got through it. And then later on that afternoon, I did not feel well. And I did not feel well in a great big hurry. And I went, it was like I jumped off a cliff not feeling well. It just was, I think I can trace it back to I actually tried an herbal drink thing. And I think my system basically just said, oh, no, you will not have that. And you will not have that anymore. And I reacted profoundly in the negative against this herbal drink. But this is where it took me to where I'm like telling my husband, we had a family meeting that night on Zoom. My daughter and her family are in Japan. I couldn't even, I was like, I can't do any of that. I have to go lay down. And the whole house was in turmoil. Dad was letting animals out of the house. There was all this going on. And I'm just trying to lay still so that I don't lose everything out of myself, because I am profoundly ill. I'm so ill that I find myself not breathing and wondering how long it's been since I've not taken a breath. And should I really be worried about that? Because I'm like, it's been a really long time since you've taken in air. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm not breathing. I don't want anything right now. I don't want anything right now. I don't want food. I don't want light. I don't want water. I don't want medicine. I don't want sunshine. I don't want air. I don't want anything. And it was intense. It was really, really intense. And I had a lot of conversation with myself about what was going on. And after some, look at me, I am not a laid back person. I'm just not, that's not who I am. And then I finally am talking to myself as the therapist I know to be, the counselor I know to be. I finally get into that role to myself and just say, how about just letting whatever this is flow through you rather than doing what you're doing here. And so I do. And it doesn't help too much at first. But David, do you know what ends up happening? I end up hearing and I've only ever heard it one time in my life, and that time is many, many years ago. I started hearing in the far distance celestial music, indescribable music that I've only ever been, when people say the turning, the moving of the spheres and celestial music. When I heard it the first time, just even saying that, I'm getting all kind of goosebumpy. And I heard it coming up out of a dream many years ago, and I hadn't heard it again until Saturday night. And I didn't even hear it as loudly, but I heard it in the distance. Mm-hmm. And I only knew how to go to sleep. And I still terribly nauseous, not breathing correctly. And I thought, well, whatever this is, we're going to go with it. And I'm just going to close my eyes and go to sleep. And I had a dreamless sleep till about the middle of the night. I got up and used the restroom, and I knew that whatever it was past with my body. But I was very aware of the fact that my father started out that morning gagging and vomiting and doing all of that. And this was the energy that was upon me when all of this was happening. And so much of what is going on right now in life and in the world and in my life, and being called by the hospital angels to go back to the volunteer work, I just knew that so much of this is playing in, that's a piece of it. That's a piece of it. That's a piece of it. And getting through my weekend, I noticed that you had a teleconference that I didn't even know happened till after it was over. But I went and signed up for it and listened to it. And it was another piece of all of this, which of course made me so happy about all of these connections, right? So your teleconference, and I please speak about this, but you had two parts of it, sort of a parental portion of it and a cosmic portion of it. And that fit right in to everything that I was experiencing. And then I think even more this bigger topic, or my more personal topic of the hospital angels, but your voice and your journey and your teleconference tucked me in so nicely after what has been a really huge couple of days for me energetically. And I want to thank you. And I'm just so profound. I just can't stop smiling, just being here with you.
That's so cool. Tell me now, with your father, when he was going through his experience with swallowing the too much Medicaid or too many supplements all at once sort of thing,
Yeah.
did you think that he might be about to die? Was that a part of that process? Did you think he was going to choke to death, or?
No, no, I didn't, for a number of reasons. Because
do you think he was he frightened of that? Is it
not of choking, because he was able to breathe. It was past, it wasn't in the airwaves. It was, any of us who have dealt with these issues, this was an esophageal something, probably esophageal spasm, which are horribly painful and can mimic many things, including heart attacks and other things. But as long, and I went and I'm doing energy emergency Reiki. I'm holding this, I brought him, I have an infrared heating pad. I brought him all of that. I'm trying to get him. I mean, he's sweating. His eyes are watering. He is profoundly uncomfortable. Interestingly enough, the pills actually never came up, but he was, which I also paid very close attention to for a number of reasons, energetically as well as very practically. I'm watching to see what comes up with this little trash can there, but a bunch of just phlegm, shall we say, just your normal phlegmy stuff is coming up. And I don't see anything anymore without looking at it energetically. I just don't, and I'm watching all of this and I'm understanding all of this and I'm talking to him about it. And he's so matter of fact about so many things. And so I'm wondering about this for a while, but it absolutely served up on a platter my next couple of days. And a lot of the decisions that I'm making about my father's care in the time that we are in, which is, October of 2021, and what's going on in the world. And many of my decisions and all of the things that I'm doing right now from my own perspective is to keep my father out of the medical system.
Yeah.
And it has not changed since in the last year and a half. It has not changed. It's like, we're not going there almost unless there really isn't any choice. And he's been great so far. Any things that have happened have been minor. He's actually been doing really, really well. But I am having to make a lot of decisions, as we all are, going throughout this time. But a lot of it has to do with what's going on in the medical system and with the hospital and all of that. And some of that was being presented to me even then. It's like, well, how distressed are you going to let your father be before asking for assistance? If it was, and not to make too much fun of you, Mom, my mother, who is gone 5 years now, if it had been my mother, she'd be like, why aren't you calling the ambulance, or why aren't we halfway to the hospital? If that would be my mother's reaction. My dad, not so much. But it was another opportunity to trust myself, to trust what I know about energy and my father and where we're going. And frankly, just reading the energy. I mean, some of that even was, how much do you trust yourself here?
Yeah.
How much do you trust? How much trust are you going to place on other systems, other things outside of yourself? Why don't you take a moment right here and center yourself and see, what is it that really needs to happen? And I was very calm. I mean, I am a type A. lively personality, but anytime there has been trauma, drama, big things out there, that may be when I'm my most calm. I am quite level-headed in all that. I don't lose it. I have never. I get actually very still.
Cool.
Can you tell our listeners who may not have listened to your teleconference, can you give a little repeat of what happened there? Because I want to riff off of that on what happened with me, but also my client and the hospital angels, the DNA stuff too, the cosmic information.
I offer quite a few teleconferences, often maybe 3 a month, sometimes 4 a month. And usually the information for a teleconference starts to come in a few days beforehand, and I write a newsletter and send it out, and people start to sign up. And there's usually a couple of different elements to a teleconference that get woven into an hour's piece of energy work, usually on a Sunday evening. And I've done a lot of these over the years. And the one that was happening yesterday was instigated because I read initially a report, I think from Astrophysics News, something like this. It was on Facebook, and just a short little report about them finding that there was a signal coming from the center of the galaxy that they hadn't picked up before, and they were measuring it as a rotating pattern of radio waves, which we receive as light. And it was an intermittent burst, and it would be present and then it would be gone. And they were fascinated by this. They'd never picked it up before. And this really alerted me as I was reading it, and I was reading it in bed one morning. And I sat up and just started to meditate. And as I meditated on this frequency, there was a huge amount of energy that just landed in my field very, very quickly. And as it landed, I was aware of almost like a backlog of energy from the galactic center, but from other stars that had been waiting to come in. And there was a backlog because I hadn't really been paying attention to that. And so it was sitting here. And as soon as I paid attention to it, it just dropped into my field in quite a tangible, almost disconcerting way, because there was so much energy came in. But as it came in, I was very aware of this rotating pattern of light serving to unwind our DNA. And this was what I was told, if you like, as it came into my system. And that this was if you like, a message. Some people would pick it up as a message, some people a signal, some people just a pattern of energy. You know, we all interpret these, this incoming data differently. But this was a message from the core of the galaxy to say, it's time now. And we know this, there are these messages coming from every aspect of our lives, but this felt really significant. So that was what instigated the teleconference. But yesterday in the afternoon, I was down by the sea, feeling out of sorts. My stomach was tight and I was feeling really miserable. And as I was walking the dog, and I just tuned in, and I could sense that there were energetic cords in my solar plexus that were just sort of hanging in space. Now, it's a long time since I did any cord work, but there was a period, and you might well remember this, a few years ago, when cord work was everybody was doing cording work and cutting cords, clearing cords, whatever. And it was a phase, isn't it? You know, it was a few years ago. When
the cord phase, I love it. We were going through the cord phase then, you know, us humans.
Did you remember that? Because everybody was doing cording work, weren't they? And I did a lot of cording work, and it was a very, very valuable piece of energy work that I did. Changed an awful lot with me, and made a big difference. But I hadn't really focused on that for years. And here, when I focused on this, and I eventually sat down just to take a proper look, it was very much solar plexus related, and there was a cord leading to my mother, a cord leading to my father. And I was told these attachments, and I had lousy parenting, to be honest. So I wasn't able to make good, sustaining, nurturing attachments to my parents because they weren't available. So I didn't learn how to do that well. And I was just shown, okay, you need to run these cords through the image of your parents. And behind them, there is the divine feminine, the divine masculine, the divine mother, the divine father figure. Anchor these cords into those archetypes, into those patterns of energy, and allow yourself to be sustained by them. And so I did that. It took seconds. It was just a matter of focusing intention and energy, and it happened very, very quickly, very smoothly. And everything shifted in my field very dramatically. Within seconds, I felt in a completely different space. And I know now with me that these things happen for a reason, not just to me. My field is primed to work with and for the collective. So I know when these things are landing that it's like, okay, we're going to be working with this. And then I was shown as I walked, do this with the earth through the family connection in the base chakra. So when we incarnate into a family, our base chakra anchors us into the family system, the family pattern, if you like. And again, that might not be particularly sustaining, but now we have to move beyond these patterns that in a sense are too small for us. So we have to just make sure that where we are being sustained by is universal, is eternal, is infinite. We're no longer looking to these small, limited patterns of our family, our parents, other human beings for our sustenance. It's really important now that we anchor deep into the core of the earth for our sustenance, into the sun, and that was with the other part through the crown, which was about authority, patterns of where have we placed other people in authority over us, where have we given away our power. Again, move through that veil that tends to surround us, keep us small and limited, and just open out into the sun, which is, in this solar system, it is obviously the thing around which everything revolves. It's the giver of light and life in this solar system. So anchoring there. So standard connections, we've all been taught and trained to anchor into the earth and the sun, but this was just doing it as a reiteration, a reaffirmation, in a sense, of where we get our sustenance from. And this was woven into yesterday's teleconference. In fact, it became the major part of it. And then the opening to receive these patterns from the core of the galaxy. Look at that cat behind you. That was just almost sort of tagged on to the end of what had been a much deeper piece of energy work, a much richer piece of energy work than I had been anticipating. And I've had a lot of feedback since of, oh my God, that was really amazing. So yeah, and that tends to be how things work for me. I don't have sometimes I have an idea, but it just all lands. It's a very organic process. These things just drop in and then they get integrated. And I know now from years of experience of doing this that what's landing is what the collective, in a sense, is calling for. And
Yeah.
of course, I work with, often on the teleconferences, between 100 and 200 people on the teleconferences. So it's a tiny piece of the collective, but that represents, a much larger piece. And we work, and this is an important piece of something for all of us going forward, is that the fields we co-create, the collective fields we co-create on this planet, are going to have an increasing impact moving forward. So we no longer gather as much in locations together to create fields of energy. We are now able, because of technologies, to gather in non-physical locations and create planetary fields of energy that can really shift things at a planetary level. And so all of the work I do has that as a focus too, that what we do is very much for the people present and those that will listen to the recording, but also then for the wider collective. It gets offered back to the wider collective to enable and enhance our collective evolution. So I'm delighted. I'd forgotten that you were going to be listening to that, but I'm delighted that it had a
I don't know that you knew I was going to. I mean, I just did this.
Had you sent an email or a text or something to say you were going to? I can't remember.
I don't know. All I know is it was perfect. It was perfect timing. And that the lion-headed beings were part of it is probably why that why I have a cat in my lap right now. But some of this, there's so many things going on. I'm going to do a BQH session myself upcoming next month, meaning I'm going to be the person connecting with the feline energies and just talking to this practitioner, Hara Katsiki, in case you know who she is. But all of a sudden, this profound experience that I had as a child with my brother made so much sense. And it had to do with some feline energies that it was so in my face obvious. And I had never seen that before. And some things were making sense. And I know that more things are going to fall into place next month. But so many things about your call has aligned with myself, with my collective or my community, so to speak, or the things that I'm interested in. But and I there's so many things I want to still talk to you about. But I'm going to pose a sort of interesting question to you because I want to see how you're going to answer this one. It might seem like a little bit of a challenge of a question. You ready? Are you ready for this one? Because I'm genuinely curious. I'm genuinely curious about this because this is not the first time I've heard from you the communication of this idea. And I'm not in challenge of this idea, but I have a question to ask about it. So you made it very clear in your newsletter and in the teleconference, your job, your path on this planet is not to dismantle this world. I actually even wrote it down, or aid in its collapse. Your role is to anchor here the new energies, the new world. And then you've just finished saying that, you're bringing this information through to your community when you have these teleconferences. So my question to you simply is, of all of those, and there's a lot of people with a lot of different connection of energy to you, is this your view of your community, how they should possibly look at this too, or of all humans even, or okay?
No, I mean, I know that this is my role, and I have to say, I want to do something at a physical level. I see the mess that politics is in, I see the mess that the environment's in, and I feel really triggered, and I get really angry and scared sometimes, and I want to do something. And this was really triggered because I was watching a very good hour-long YouTube documentary, if you like, which has brought together a lot of information that I had known already, but about these two companies, the two hedge funds, Vanguard and BlackRock, that own and run the world. And it's, I watched that, and it was like just seeing it all at once in an hour-long piece was powerful and scary again, and it put me in touch with that I should be doing something, should be doing something. And as I played with that and thought of ideas and whatever, and I'm actually attending a short course with a woman I respect immensely, a woman called Julie Soskin, Soskin, who was my first ever psychic development teacher. And she was an amazing, amazing teacher. She runs a small school called Insight and Intuition. And I can't recommend her courses enough, to be honest. So if you're looking for somebody, and of course this is all online now, so you could attend her stuff from wherever you are in the world. Julie Soskin, Insight and Intuition. So I've connected with her again quite recently and done some lovely work with her. And she'd invited me to attend a course with her, one of the more advanced courses, and we were working. And this got brought up. I didn't bring up the issue of these two companies. Somebody else brought it up, and I had made a decision I wasn't going to bring it up, but somebody else brought it up. They'd watched a similar video in the previous couple of days too. And so we were going to focus on them, on that company in this course. We were going to hold a very neutral, loving energy and offer it to all of the employees of these companies as a way of perhaps shifting hearts and minds. And I was very much on board with this. I thought this is lovely. Energetic sacred activism, you know.
Oh, I love that phrase. Energetic sacred activism.
Yeah, I'm doing a course on this quite soon. Well, I thought I was, and maybe I don't know where I am with it. But anyway, so we started on this and we were coming together. As soon as the meditation started, my computer crashed. So it was like, shit. And I sort of knew that there was a purpose to this, but I was trying to get back on. And then I thought, don't just sit and meditate. So I joined the meditation without the connection. And I had the names BlackRock and Vanguard on a piece of paper. I just put my hands on the piece of paper, which I've done in the past with this sort of thing. And there was a lot of energy streaming through. And all of a sudden I was pulled out of my body, out beyond the earth. And I was looking back, almost trying to hold on to the earth, thinking I should be there focused on these companies. And I was pulled out way, way, way beyond the earth. And then my attention, my focus turned away from the earth, and there was this huge sphere of energy coming in, very slowly coming in. And I and millions of others had our focus on this sphere of energy, and we were bringing it in to this planet. And then the meditation finished and I came out of it and I hadn't got back on, but I wrote to people and apologized for the crash and whatever. And I was a bit confused by this, and I took the dog for a walk. And as I was walking, it was like, oh, again, and for years I have been told this, your job is not to focus on helping, dismantling the old world. It is to focus on laying the groundwork for the new world, laying the energetic groundwork for the new world. And this was it. I was being shown very clearly, no, don't focus on these companies that think they own and run the world, because their time is very limited. Let them play their games, because that's almost finished now. Mm-hmm. Your job is to focus on bringing in the energy of the new world. And that was what this extraordinary sphere, a huge sphere of light that looked like another version of planet Earth, but it was just a sphere of pure light that me and millions of others were guiding into this.
Did it have music? Did it have music?
No music. I heard no music.
This is what I'm wondering. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that what I heard coming in?
Maybe it is. I didn't hear any music, but I was also aware of Dolores Cannon, the world's splitting, the world's, and I have seen that too. And this felt like this new dimensions of the earth that are coming into being, that we're all being encouraged to anchor into, to participate, we bring those energies in. I mean, that's a lovely idea, that we're out in the cosmos guiding in this vast sphere of energy. And in a sense, I think that's happening. But actually, these energies come in through us. They come in through our bodies, through our energy fields. They come in from the cosmos, ground themselves through our body into the earth. And this is how we transform the planetary energy field, how we ground that sphere of cosmic energy through us to create a new world. And this is what was happening on the teleconference then, these energies coming from the core of the galactic center through us for the planet. And that I know, and I have known for years because I have been told this over and over again, this is your role, to ground the energies of the new earth. This is how we do it. And yet I get triggered endlessly and forget that and think there must be something more I should be doing. I should be
So you're
demonstrating.
human. You're actually human, David Manning. Yeah.
Totally, very human.
And what if it does is it changes our DNA too, right? Because I really, really want to connect into this idea that those energies, this cosmic thing and all of that, and so much of your conference played right in, because this may be way too much information for people, but way too much, but I'm going to say it anyway because that's just kind of who I am. So, sun gazing, bringing in the cosmic energy through the eyes, sun bathing with as much of your body as you can or are able to expose, depending on your certain situation. But have you heard, because it's a thing, that if you get sun right on your perineum, right at that root chakra, that's an infusion that is it's a good infusion right where you need it. And let's put it this way, and your meditation and your teleconference, I'm like, so I just did that a few minutes ago, and now I'm hearing David talk about it, and we're doing it energetically as well. So I just love that, because we're just tapped into the same place. But just even in the session that I just did, which was so much about the male female thing too, she actually had her hands were speaking about the different divine feminine, divine masculine, cosmic things, and how she can tap into that a little bit more and what's going on right now. But so much of her session too was about you humans don't have the slightest concept about how big DNA truly is.
I'm
how
just
big it
starting to have
truly is.
inklings, because, and I know I need to spend a bit more time focusing on DNA, but it's, when I do, it just opens up like a vast, vast cosmic library. And that, I have the tiniest understanding of it, but the lion-headed beings that have been a team of guides for me for maybe 12 years now, when they initially came in and introduced themselves, they said, we're geneticists, and our role, one of our roles, is to gather DNA from all over the cosmos and use it to kickstart life on planets that are ready for that experience. And that's our DNA. It's an amalgamation, a beautiful melding together of different strands of DNA, different patterns of wisdom and consciousness from races all over this and perhaps other universes that are wanting to participate in the experiment in consciousness on this or any other given planet that is embarking on that journey. And that's our DNA. It's not the nonsense we've been told about junk DNA, and that's just because scientists don't understand what it's for, or maybe they do and don't want us to know what it's for. But the DNA is this extraordinary window into universal consciousness, universal awareness, and I keep seeing it lighting up inside us. And these infusions and activations that come in from the cosmos are very much designed to trigger and open up DNA. And of course, the more we clear our system of the energetic dross that we have been wrapped in, the wounds and the patterns and the beliefs and the ancestral stuff, just clearing the system, then we make the DNA very available to these infusions of light that bring more and more of it online and into awareness. But I think now we're in a terrifically important part of that process. And I think running up over the next few months, really, sitting with sunlight, moonlight as well, maybe. And there's another thing, that a really interesting little article that I noticed yesterday on Facebook, that they're finding from these measurements they're holding out in space that the Earth is emitting cosmic rays, and they've never
sure.
before. So the
Yeah.
Earth is emitting these cosmic rays, and this was specifically in Antarctica, they were picking it up. But these energies are emerging from the Earth too. And so I think it's really important to give time and space on a regular basis, maybe once a week, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour perhaps, where you consciously receive the downloads from the center of the galaxy, from the sun, from all of the stars, and you receive what is meant for you, because what is meant for you is different than is meant for me. You know, we have a different back catalogue of evolutionary history and a different library of genetics engaged in our system. So we are each totally individual at that level, but giving time and space to it, we don't have to sort out where the rays and the energies come from. That's done by the cosmos and our higher self. But giving time and space to it, that is our responsibility, and that makes the journey much smoother if we do just give time and space to it, because then the things can integrate in a timely fashion and much more smoothly, and it doesn't then get jumbled up and all have to happen at once when we finally remember.
What I'm finding is some of this influx of energy in my clients as of the last several weeks, there's a preponderance of experience where they are being more, if not initially, more fully introduced to other aspects of themselves, and other aspects of themselves, meaning characters even, of in other lives, and not so much this idea of past lives as in something that's encapsulated in a box and is over and done with over here. What's happening in my BQH sessions more than ever before, not that it never happened, because this has happened, it has happened for years, but just more regularly, is that people are meeting aspects of themselves sort of in real time. And sometimes these aspects have conversations with each other. The traditional model of this work, which is basically based upon the foundations of past life regression, is you kind of view this past life and you see it in its entirety, and you look at it from all aspects over here, and then you talk to the person over here, or the higher self, or whatever over here, and it's all in these different delineated boxes. Not so much anymore. And when even the session I had today, my client was talking on behalf of both of these parts of her, plus other higher dimensional parts of herself. But some of what came in was just fascinating, remembering that she works at a hospital. And I'm already seeing like a train coming down the tracks, that this is all barreling at the exact same time that I've been planning on talking to you about this. And so I actually bring that up, and I hadn't talked to this person at all about this concept of hospital angels. And as I am talking to her about her position, which is, shall we say, difficult in the extreme right now in October of 2021, because of some of the disconnects and some of the censorship and some of the heavy-handed tactics that are going on right now in the world. And this was weighing upon her heavily. I'm talking to her about the energetic support there, and how I am feeling called by a collective that I've come to think of, especially because of you, the hospital angels. And it opened up, this floodgate of information came through. So I want to back up for a second for that by kind of starting at the linear beginning, which is, and I don't know, when was it? 2017, 2018? I don't remember when it was now, David. You and I have known each other now so long. And we were talking, and you were telling me about the hospital angels. And I remember it was like somebody took a 2x4 and just went boom upside my head. Just the phrase never left me. It was such a big phrase. And yet it kind of stayed over there as your term for a while, that I thought about every once in a while. But I would like for you to talk about that, because I have since sort of begun a conversation with hospital angels myself. But please, if you would, tell me your perspective of this concept and how, if you remember, how you might have mentioned it the first time.
I mean, I love what you're saying, because it seems so exciting to me that, and these times we're in are changing our view of medicine for a lot of people. We're having a lot of the veils lifted, and we have placed the medical profession, and I come from a very medical family. My father was a doctor, and funny, I was just thinking before about hospital angels before we started this conversation. When my father was a GP in general practice, so a family doctor in effect, and this was back in, he was doing this in the 1950s, and I was born in 1963. So I have memories, vague memories. We lived in a small town in Wales, and there was a small little hospital where I grew up that my father was very involved in. On Christmas days, we as a family would go down to the hospital, so he, the doctor, could go and visit his patients in hospital on Christmas Day.
Aww.
And it was a different time. And I know my father was an addict, an alcoholic. He was also a very good doctor, and even to this day is remembered and loved by some of his patients, because he really cared for his patients. It was a very different time, and he had no capacity to care for himself within that. So he was overburdened he was an empath, and a healer, and without any knowing of how to cope with that. But I have these memories of him interacting with his patients and my mother. It was a bit like, because in those days, doctors were put on pedestals very much. And we were wandering around a bit like the royal family, in a sense. It was that weird sort of dynamic. But I understood and could feel the real care of him for his patients. And that always touched me. And this was a small little hospital, so that was a lovely memory that came back because of the conversation we are having. But now we're finding, the whole industry, because medicine is a big, huge industry that is now governed perhaps more by vast multinational corporations than anything else. And I genuinely think that most people that go into medicine have a deep desire and the highest of intentions. I really do believe that. Of course, that's not always the case, but for the most part, I think it is. And a lot of the scientists that go in are really looking to improve conditions and health conditions for mankind. But there are this other element that has taken over the running of the world, in effect, through companies like Vanguard and BlackRock, where profit has become the overriding motive. And this is a huge sickness that this planet is wrapped in. It is the sickness, I think, in a sense, that this planet is being ravaged by at the moment. I have had quite a lot of personal experience of hospitals. I've had cancer a couple of times. I've been HIV positive since 1992, when there was no medication. All of these experiences have been rich and profound aspects of my own healing journey. And there have been times when I have been very ill. The first time I had cancer was a liver cancer, and I was really, really ill in hospital. And I was introduced, if you like, to the hospital angels in the hospital I was in, a big central London hospital. And I was told to connect with the hospital angels and ask for their help and support in finding the right doctors, the right treatments, the right conditions in the hospital that I was in, because I was, even at that stage, a bit worried about, will I get the right doctor, the right treatment? Will they make the right decisions? All of that sort of stuff. And it was just this beautiful reassurance of, connecting with this, how I experienced it was an overlighting energy, as if there were a large angelic presence with its wings outstretched and holding the hospital. And I genuinely think there is that, because hospitals are places fundamentally of healing. All sorts of other stuff, it's an institution populated by human beings, so there are all of the intense dramas that go with deep human interaction, particularly in a place where life and death, it can be a major concern. But each doctor, each nurse will have their team of guides, their higher selves, working to inform and intuit, pass on the most appropriate information about each person they're dealing with, all of that. And me as a patient, it was useful to move me out of any sense of powerlessness, which is easy when you're being cared for in a hospital. They don't tend to empower you. They want to make decisions for you.
Right.
And it's really important to maintain a sense of your own power and integrity, that what I used to do was call upon the higher self and the guides of the doctors and nurses that were interacting with me and connect with them through the human being and say, would you guide them? Would you help them to make the best decisions for me and for everybody else, And that was a useful thing for me, because it helped me to feel reassured, and it helped me to, I even now as I'm speaking about it, I can feel the field of energy that I was held in that first major hospital experience of my life. And it was very profound. And so calling on the hospital angels, there are all sorts of energies in hospitals, and often there are a lot of people that have died and haven't realized it and are hanging around, all of that sort of stuff.
Yep.
When you call on and connect to the overlighting healing energy of the institution of the hospital, that's what you empower. That's what you wrap yourself in, which gives you an amazing level of protection, if you like. And I never quite liked the word protection, but it's important. You're at your most vulnerable if you're in a hospital needing care. And there are all sorts of weird and wonderful energies in a hospital. So it's useful. And if you know somebody in hospital, you can pray for this on their behalf. If the person isn't able to do that for themselves. Or you can have this conversation with them and tell them, here, do this, or we can do it together. That's a beautiful thing to do too. But it's a really beautifully empowering thing to do for you, because that connection is always there. And it's underutilized too. The angelic connect, they're always telling us, you don't call on us enough. You don't realize that we are waiting to be asked for our assistance. And for the most part, we forget completely to ask. And there are so many of them just longing to be invited into situations to help. So that was my initial thing with hospital angels. And it's every time I go past a hospital now, I just acknowledge the angelic presence that works within the hospital, because it's beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for that incredible and beautiful story. So I'm going to talk now about my connection with the hospital angels that's just happened recently. And one that I believe that I'm understanding connected with me way back in 2008. And I tell this story all the time, how I got into this work at all. Chronic things wrong, never cancer, never anything serious like you, which kind of, thank God, considering my energy and how I deal. I was enough with just chronic unexplained stuff. But when I got to my dark night of the soul, when I had my profound spiritual experience that pulled me out of my body and set me in front of my light team, and I tell this story often, but I actually was handed, literally in my experience, like a piece of paper by what I believe was my higher self from a team of about 5 beings of light, just handed to me. And right before having the experience, it was, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? I've tried everything. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And next thing I know, I'm given a piece of paper with 1, 2, 3 written on this piece of paper. Number 1 was go to my doctor and tell him about a nutrient. Number 2 was volunteer for this volunteer organization. Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, which takes photographs of babies who have passed, either stillborn babies, babies who've been pulled from life support, babies sometimes in the latter portions of miscarriage. Professional photographers go to the hospital, provide this service on a volunteer basis, and give to the families beautiful black and white images, very respectful art type images as a connection to their child, who, however short of a life they had, even if it was never outside the womb, they can have and hold, rather than leave the whole experience with absolutely nothing but memories that are all just here. And when I did this work in Texas, and number 3 was, by the way, have past life regression, which took me to Dolores and all of that. But I continued the work with the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep in Texas. And it took a while to sort of figure out, because remember, my whole thing was, I need help. I need healing. I need to be fixed, right? But this number 2 was about nutrients. Number 1 was about nutrients. Number 2 was about volunteering for this thing. Number 3 was go get this past life regression, which ends up having me creating a whole community service and worldwide thing now on, BQH and quantumhealers.com, which basically ends up being for everyone else. But at the time that got me going, it was like, just fix this. Something's going on here. But number 2 has always been kind of on its own, right? It's like, that's me going and being 100% service to others. And at first it was like, I'm not sure I can do that. Can I do that? And I would meditate on that. And the answer was, oh my goodness, not only can you do it, you are perfect at this. And why? Because I had 2 high-risk pregnancies. I had women who were my roommates in hospital when I spent months and months in hospitals, who ended up going home without a baby. For the grace of God, go I, right? My babies were born early, but very healthy, and they're very healthy adult children, or people right now, and they were very healthy children. One was 3 weeks early, one was 4 weeks early, but they're fine. But what I was told was, doing this work, I was surrounding myself with angels, and the most grace that is available on the planet Earth is in a room where life and death happens sometimes at the exact same time. And being able to be of service in this moment not only is a profound gift for the parents, but for my soul, but also I'm stepping into that energy, that incredible energy. And so I'm going to leave that aside right now. So I did all that work in Texas. I tried to do it once I moved to Kansas in 2010. And they said, there's no chapter here. They said, do you want to be the coordinator? And I'm like, no, no, my plate, even back then, was very full. It's more full now. But no, I could not be the coordinator. And I just kind of left it. And I've checked in every once in a while, and I got so busy and I just didn't. So now, fast forward to earlier, just even a few weeks ago, yet another time where I started feeling right in the solar plexus, like something's not right here. Something's not right, kind of meandering, wandering, yeah, pain. And I do what a 3D person does. Everybody, let's see, what have I eaten? Where have I been? What did I have to drink? Did I not sleep? Did I this? Did I that? I'm going down all of the, and I'm exhausting everything and not understanding what's going on with me here and not feeling well. And every time I would go into meditation and ask about this, like, okay, I need a clue. And I really wasn't going anywhere. But when I say that I really wasn't going anywhere, I actually was. I was just discounting it. And don't we do that? Don't we? At least I do. I do that, right? So where was I going? I was going straight back to that moment where I'm standing in front of my light council, my higher self, and I'm told to do these things. Well, let me tell you, I'm on as many supplements now as I've ever been in my entire life, as many of us on this planet are, really trying to make up for what has been removed from our natural food. Let's just leave it at that. But so that part's taken care of. It's not that I'm taking too many supplements. No. Number 3, having a past life regression. No, quantum healing. I got that one covered in spades. But number 2 was still kind of missing, right? I mean, I still wasn't quite kind of doing that. And I thought, and I took the moment, I went, well, I wonder if now I lay me down to sleep is now in Wichita, because I hadn't even, which is the nearest big town. And I looked it up, and lo and behold, they were, and they had an Instagram page. And I didn't see it any other way, but I sent a message through the Instagram app, and I kind of forgot about it after that. I'm like, let me know what's going on here, how it's working now, because wow, maybe I'd like to get back into this. Just making the inquiry, I felt relief, absolute relief. And I realized about 2 days into it, like I'm feeling so much better. I'm no longer thinking about this anymore. This was following me for a while, whatever this was. And I'm like, oh yeah, did they respond to me on Instagram? I don't always go to Instagram. I can't keep track of it all. There's a lot. There's a lot out there. And anyway, I go and look, and I get a message back, and it's from the area coordinator, who's like, thank God I found you this way. We were about ready to change the name of this page because they're changing some of their social media outreach, let's say. And she was about ready to lose me. And we responded, and I got going that day. She was like, and it's the last day that you can join without, rejoin without this, it's recruiting month and do all this. And within 24 hours, I was accepted again back into, it wasn't hard. I'd done it for years anyway, but, so I just showed them my photos and reminded them my new information. And it was pretty cut and dry, although the organization itself has truly expanded, and it's gotten more professional, bigger, and has more moving parts to it for sure. But it's good. And I was back on it. And once I got like the packet and the materials, and I'm getting ready to go, everything about this part of me that was not well absolutely vaporized. And if you would be in the medical profession and taking a client, and you're going through what might be causing their dis-ease, in general, in typical conventional style, that would never be even addressed. It would be stuff like sleeping and diet, and sure, things like stress and emotions, absolutely, but never these, sort of out there things. And it was like the instantaneous answer to what was going on with me. And so I followed that rabbit hole a little bit more. And that's when it really came through. And it was like the area hospital angels, the message is coming from them, right? And what happened in this session that I just finished before talking to you now, about an hour ago, is an absolute connection with this concept of hospital angels. And it all came out through her, and her hospital angel teams were telling her things. I happen to mention in there, I feel this, my friend David Manning feels this. So actually you were mentioned while this woman's in giantly deep trance, very high connected with cosmic beings. You were part of this conversation, my own team, your team. But here's some of the things that we found out, and I thought you might want to hear this. So first of all, with my client, they talked about how her team would meet her at her car and escort her in and help shield her from some of the less than wonderful energies that you mentioned previously. And there was this deep and profound acknowledgement of the empath in her entering in such a place, and that they were providing as much assistance as possible, but that more assistance could be provided now that she was aware of them. For her, they came as a vision of 5, very tall, very enveloping white beings. But here's, as the conversation went deeper, and this was part of what they said, please tell David this too. Your hospital angels, you have like your own, you don't have a brand new set that assists you in this hospital or that clinic or whatever. You actually have an interface, a ground crew, so to speak, of hospital angels that are with you in any time and place you are seeking healing. And then, they interface with the larger team that's there, and what you've already mentioned with the team of doctors and nurses and good-hearted service to others, folk who literally and especially and genuinely want the best for you.
Yeah.
And this to me was a beautiful, profound realization, because I had made it very logistics, like, okay, that hospital has that team and that hospital has that team. And in a sense, they probably do too. But you have your own kind of special forces hospital angel energy that goes with you wherever you may need them. And I found that profoundly comforting. And especially in this conversation with my client this morning, they wanted to make sure that I said that to the conscious mind of David Manning today.
No, well, it is really, really beautiful, because that is something I'm aware of. And it does, what it brings to mind, do you know the work of Michelle Smallwright?
I absolutely do. I knew about her before I ever knew about Dolores and any of this stuff. Yeah.
So her medical assistance program is extraordinary, and in a sense is very much a piece that I work with on the teleconferences, where we call in different layers of energy to hold and the field and to work with us. And that, in a sense, we all have all of these teams of beings that we can call upon. And it's so important now, as we become more and more multidimensional, and the interaction between the different dimensions is so available, that we really become familiar with and used to interacting in that way, because that opens us up so much more, and I think I was communicating that a bit yesterday. I can never remember what happens on the teleconferences. I'm in an altered state when they're happening, and I never retain it, but it's becoming so much more available and important, particularly in these times when there is so much tension in the collective fields and so much oppression, in effect, and so many people are still struggling and choosing to stay blind, in effect. And at this stage, it does have to be almost a conscious choice to not see, because the truth is out there, and it's sort of slapping you in the face. And I'm not just here talking about the corruption and the politics and all of that sort of stuff, which is very, very evident, but the truth of how beautiful this can be, and these gorgeous experiences that you and I are talking about, and the extraordinary amounts of support that are available to us in every moment. I mean, I was swimming earlier on, and the sea is getting cold, and I was just hanging in the water, feeling the grace of being supported by the water. And it was just so lovely. It's a cloudy sky and the sun was sort of breaking through this dim silvery light and this gray water, but it was just feeling this support. I mean, there were just moments of ecstasy in this cold water on a gray day. And it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And that is available to us all the time if we tune into it, and those moments then are deeply sustaining and deeply healing, for the rest of the day, the rest of the week. And each day can be full of those moments. Each crisis
Yes.
is filled with those opportunities
Yes.
to reach out, to ask for help, and to be supported. We never ever are actually alone, even when we feel at our most alone. That idea of aloneness is truly an illusion, because then the support is at its most available. And we really are being encouraged to make use of the support now, because it's sort of pressing in on the planet, wanting us to break out of the sort of straitjacket. It is tightening at in some dimensions of our world, and not by any means in all dimensions, but some dimensions. And we tend to be locked into that dimension and think that's reality. It isn't. There are many other dimensions. And if we give more and more attention to those other dimensions, then the third dimension has less of a grip and has less power over us, because we are aware that we exist and are much bigger than that world, in effect.
There's one more thing I kind of want to talk about, and I've already kept you for more than an hour, but there's one more thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to start with. I want to start by saying that every time I pour salt in my own bath water, I think about you swimming in the sea, and I can't, that's as close as I can do here in Kansas, but I pour salt. It's something about that salt of the earth and the crystal. There's something about that is extremely nourishing for humans, whether it's the ocean or in a bath. And I'm just talking just regular old salt. I've got just sun-dried crystal salt. But so there's that. The second thing I want to talk about is this, back again to the hospital angels, because you're probably aware of Dolores Cannon's seminal work, The 3 Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth. So what is coming forth right now? It's coming forth now in multiple sessions, and including from a good friend of mine named Michelle Walling. If you're familiar with Michelle Walling, she wrote an article about this, and this is all connected. And choose my words carefully here. So I know that I'm being called to do this work again at the hospitals, in conjunction with what I believe in a small way is part of the 4th wave of volunteers coming to the planet right now. Michelle speaks of it. We're all just discovering some of it. Some of this information is coming through. How and why? Because we're expanding, we're accepting those cosmic energies that you're talking about, as you have been. But what is seeming to be happening here is this 4th wave of volunteers is an influx of not simply souls from other lives that have never incarnated before. Dolores Cannon labels these souls in different kinds of basic group sets. And this 4th wave is a different kind of wave, in that it's it's bigger. It's more it's more in the expanded aspects of our energetic selves. It's not so linear and boxed in like these other waves of thinking about it. As an example, one energetic 4th wave of volunteer is a higher self volunteer that more fully integrates into a person's conscious mind and conscious presence. That's one way. Walk-ins are another way. Swapping is another way. So one of the ways, though, and this is how and why I believe that I've been called to the hospital for this continuation of this volunteer work, is by this group of young incarnates, meaning just within the womb, that will not be leaving the hospital. This is part of the wave, but that is coming to assist. And in that same physical space are the older people, or the people who've succumbed to the current maladies of the day, shall we say. So the hospital has become an incredibly important gateway for the ins and the outs and everything that's going on there. And I have felt like the angels have been, come back, because your energetic field then interacts with all that are in that room, all that are in the hospital, all of that. So I've already been, and I'll tell you a funny thing first, though, because I'm going in, and going into a hospital these days is not the same as going into the hospital 10 years ago. And I really have not, and I only had to do it once in the last year and a half, gone into a hospital. And I had to go then, and it wasn't for myself, and it wasn't for my dad, but I had to go in. We had to check in, and there were some different things, and I have my tag and everything, and I had to go, and I had to put a mask on, and I hadn't put a mask on yet, and I didn't even have a mask. And I'm looking around the house, and I thought I had some surgical masks, and I couldn't find them, and I'm like, ugh. And I'm on my way out the driveway, and I get this wonderful set of synchronicities start happening, which is they're going to give me one, and I don't know if I want one that they give me. And I wish I would have had one. And I wish I would have thought about this. And I wish I would have, and I've got some Egyptian cotton ones that I might want to order from Etsy, but okay, well, I'm just going to go. So I go out my driveway, and there's a box at the end of my driveway. And I go, could that be? And I go and I get the box, because I actually remembered that we had ordered some N95 masks, not because of anything out there or hospitals, but because we're getting ready to pasture burn our field. And last year, my husband, when we did that, he got a lot of debris in his lungs, and it was a problem for a number of weeks afterwards. I said, why don't you just order some of those N95s? Well, they're on back order, but I can get some, and I can order them. That's exactly what was at the end of the driveway. On my way out, I completely unexpected. They're just sitting there in a little box, and I put it in the passenger seat. I opened them up, and I went, okay, thank you. And I took one, put it in my bag, went to the hospital, and we're getting ready to go in, and I got to put this thing on. I didn't know how to do it. I was putting it on sideways. The thing was in the wrong way, and the gal had to help me. And I'm laughing at myself too during this, but I'm actually rather proud. I'm like, I'm actually glad I don't know how to put this damn thing on, but I'm finally putting it on per my choice, right? I'm not per my choice. And even when I went to the hospital before, I didn't have to, but I'm putting it on per my choice because I'm doing this, and I get in. But the amount of information that I got in this particular session was extraordinary. This very young soul who basically is communicating very, very specifically and clearly, and the family was beautiful, and everything was beautiful about it, but it was so much about the profundity of the situation. Again, what I mentioned before, the birth and death happen in the same room, and I would never wish this upon any human ever. I watched my parents bury a son, and he was grown and had a life, but burying a child is not anything I desire for any human on this planet. Please know that when I go to do this work or even talk about anything in even the slightest positive light in the next few sentences. But the aspects of energetic sharing that have happened from that young embodied spirit, with everything that was going on in the hospital, and with me, and with the parents, and with the communication of even this young thing, with the one thing this one young being was telling me was, well, I couldn't have sustained a 3D physical form even if I wanted to, because of where I come from.
Yeah.
This is the tiniest little, I get to touch physical reality like this much. And for that soul, understanding the expansion, witnessing the extremes of joy from the beginning of it to the extremes of grief at the end of it, that, I'm going to cry just thinking about that full spectrum of human emotion. That is a gift to their, shall we call it DNA?
Yeah, to their evolution.
Right,
Wherever.
that goes that way, right?
Yeah.
And theirs is shared with the family, with me as a photographer, with the hospital staff, with the hospital angels, with all of this. And there is this huge symphony of energy exchanges going on while I was there, knowing too that the floor of the current situation, malady, of the hospital is also participating in sharing those codes there. And I'm just like, wow. And what I'm understanding is my part of that. And that's why I had to get, because I guess I'm dense, I don't hear it otherwise. They have to hit me in my body. They got to hit me right here. Pew, until you figure out where you're supposed to be and doing. And once I have gotten my gear, and now I'm on board with that. And even my family, at first, their logical thing is like, they want to say, and you want to do what on top of all of the other stuff that you're already doing? But, actually both my husband and my daughter went, they saw very clearly. I didn't get any pushback at all from, this is going to mean your to-do list is going to be even longer, and it's going to take you longer to answer emails and longer to get to those things. But they're like, oh no, it was really great for me. They were like, oh no, you need this, don't you? And we see how you need this. And
That's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Make notes, make lots of notes, because I think there's a book in this or something, isn't there?
Yes, I think so.
A lovely piece of work that needs to be disseminated so that other people, because what I'm realizing more and more is that awareness is everything. Consciousness is everything. And that's what we're coming to. And that beautiful idea of these fields of consciousness coming from these other rarefied dimensions, so rare that they can't actually incarnate here because they wouldn't be able to, but they get a tiny foothold in this dimension, and then can beam their energy through that tiny little foot to make a difference here. And the extraordinary act of love that is.
Yeah.
And support for what's unfolding here.
Yeah.
And that's, consciousness is everything. And I think that's why it's important that more people know about what's happening on the planet, because as more people become aware of, each individualized human energy field is a field of consciousness that, as it becomes aware, it shines a light into what has up until now been the darkness. And the more of us that do that, then the darkness dissipates and lifts, and it's happening quite quickly now, even if it does seem like it's at its darkest just before the dawn. I really think that's the case. So I think, you know, what you're speaking to here is truly beautiful, and another element of just how supported we are here. You know, it's gorgeous. It really is. So thank you for sharing that. It's deeply touching, isn't it? You know, it's very
Yep.
beautiful, very beautiful.
Oh gosh. Been talking to you in my head for so long about this. I'm so glad to get
Finally
it
get
out,
it.
and we recorded it for everybody. And I
Great.
think that's a fabulous way to just leave it for now.
Yeah, beautiful.
David,
Really
thank you for spending time with me today. This has been wonderful.
It's always a joy, you know that, and I love you dearly, and I truly there's something about Wichita. I know nothing about that city, but the name of it sounds just really fascinating to me. And
it's the name of a Native American tribe. This is all about the Native Americans. And okay, so now you got, I have to at least mention this part of Wichita, because, you know, we're flyover country. The people on the East Coast and the people on the West Coast, they sort of discount, and we're practically in the very center. So we're like the poster child for flyover cities, and no reason to come here. And it's flat and it's boring and no culture and all this. Well, I don't know about that. There's the prairie, and every place is, you make it what you will. But let me tell you a little bit. So there's the Wichita Indian tribe, and there's many other Indian tribes, the Kansa, that's where Kansas comes from. But Wichita itself has the confluence of the Big Arkansas River, the Little Arkansas River, Third River, and they all come together, the confluence of three, and they have a Black Bear Boson, I believe is the name of the artist who has it's this beautiful statue sculpture that's right there at the confluence of the rivers, and it's of a Native American in full headdress and everything, and that is a portal. That is an absolute energy portal, and the Native Americans knew it, and so other people know it. And when some people come here to visit or come to the live BQH classes that I hold in the little town outside of Wichita called Augusta, if people say, where should we go, I'm like, go there. Go there, and that's the place to go. So people knew it here. Life out here on the prairie is where I'm comfortable. I do go into Wichita, of course I do, but I like it out here in the country, and you are so welcome.
Well, I'm just thinking, I really look forward to the time when you show me, when you take that to that portal.
Oh, you are so welcome. And someday I want to go by the sea, and get into those chilly, salty waters with you. Probably not stay as long as you, but I'm all for that. That's a whole nother topic in and of itself, the cold therapy. I got
water swimming is profound. It really,
I got things to talk about there too. We'll save that one for another time, another day. Yeah, but thank you so much again. Love you so much.
It's always a pleasure, and a huge hug and lots of love to you and
for
to
me
everybody.
too. And yes, thank you all too who showed up, and don't hang up on me, David, because I want to catch up with you on a different level after I say goodbye to everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today, and more on the hospital angels, the fourth wave, and what's going on in our world, maybe in the next show. All right, bye everyone. Thanks.